Hi there, it's still Winston Okasubo here, and today we'll be looking at some new widgets. So we'll be looking at the container widgets, the circle, avatar, and the cards. So very quick, the container widgets basically looks like container in HTML if you're used to HTML. So it has all these properties. It has a background color, a background image, padding, margin, and border. Right? So how can we now implement this? So let's go back to our code. So this is the last page that we're working on. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create another page that we're going to explore this new widget. So I'm going to make sure that the new file that I'll be creating is inside this library folder. Right? Because remember, we want to always put our files inside this library folder. So I'll create a new file here. I can then call it screen underscore. So that's that. Now inside here I'm going to do my FUSTL, then select the first option. So that's basically a stateless widget. So the further we go, we'll understand what stateless and stateful widgets are. So my app, I'm going to give it a title and say container widgets. And I'll go back to my main.dat, right? So what we have here now is the screen too. So I'll go back to my main.dat and change my home to screen. So now remember, when changing it, make sure you are importing. So make sure it shows this option of importing, then you import it. So once I save this, it's going to reload, then it's going to come back. So the screen that I've created, yes. So yeah, now we have this running. So the next thing I want to do is, you can go ahead and put the background color here, right? So after this text that ends here, I could put a background color that says colors just here. So yeah, we have that. So now my body, remember I told you about rows and column, right? So basically a row will allow us to place the items horizontally, a column will allow us to place the items vertically. But this time around, we're going to look at a new widget called the single child scroll view. Single child scroll view. So now apps are basically different, especially Flutter is a bit different from your normal website development. Now, for a page to actually be scrollable, you need to specify that this page should be scrollable. It doesn't work out of the box. So how can I specify that? Is by specifying a widget as a child. So this particular widget is called single child scroll view, right? So the single child scroll view, so the content inside will automatically be scrollable. So now inside my single child, it accepts a child, single child. So it accepts a child. So since I want more than one content inside, I'm just going to put a container. Sorry, a column. So a child will be a column. Now, a child being a column means now a column can now have children, which should be the various items I want to place on that page. So you see how app really works, right? So it's a bit somehow. Now my first widget that we're exploring, or want us to explore today, is a container widget. So let's go ahead and create the container. Now the container widget, when you create it, you won't really see anything there because it's there, but it's not really there, right? So we need to give it a width, and we need to give it a height, and probably a background color. So this is what we'll do. So I'll set a width of double dot infinity, or let me use 300 for a start, and I'll set a height of 400, and I'll also set a background color. Set a color of colors dot purple. So the color here specifies the background color. So by doing all this, I have this cool guy. So yeah, I have this guy. 400 is too much. Oh, let me make it 200. So you will notice that the container doesn't occupy the full space available. So you can go ahead and try to get the exact value of it, right? But now, remember that what you are doing now is going to work on different mobile devices that have different widths. So some mobile phones are bigger than some other mobile phones. So how do you write your code so that this container will occupy the full width in any situation? So one of the easiest way is to specify an infinity width. So I set double.infinity, basically going to take up the available space, right? So this will work regardless of the screen size. So if it's a very large screen size or a very small screen size, they will still work. So now we've seen the container. Now, remember the container accepts a child. It accepts a child. So I can easily put a child as a text. Does .rem work here? .rem doesn't really work here. So how do I now get plenty text that going to say something? I'll just type some things. So this is a container, and I want the content to be full on the page. So I'm just typing whatever is on my mind. Alright, so basically I'll reduce this height to like 100. It's still not big enough. Then what I will do is I want this content to like be all through the page. So I'll also change the styling. So remember the text has a property called style, which accepts a text style that accepts a font size. So I'll say font size 50. Right, so now specifying that will make my text bigger. So I'm going to see if it takes up the full page. Now, so basically it does, and it even does more than expected, right? Let me just drop it back at 20. So what I want to do, I want to explain how the padding works, right? But I'm just going to leave it like this. I'll leave it at 20. So we'll notice that the content is basically touching the edge of the container, right? And the container is touching the edge of the page. So that's alone, that's for it touching the edge of the page. You can set a margin for it. So now another thing about these properties, the order in which they appear do not matter as long as it is there. So the height could come before the width, or the width could come before the height. It doesn't matter, anyhow you want it. Or try to keep your child and children as the last. That's the only thing. So I'll set margin. Now for setting margin, it's not just a double, right? Because if I put my mouse on this, I'll see the margin is expecting a property, a value that's type of edge insert geometry. What it means is it's expecting edge inserts.all. So I'll say edge inserts.all 20. Now this means it's going to add 20 to all, a margin of 20 to all sides of this container, right? So the margin is basically a spacing that works outside of the widget. And now not all widgets have the margin property, right? So the container is one of them that has the margin property. And aside the margin property, it also has the padding property, because if you notice the contents here are not really, they are touching the edge of this box. So it also has the padding property. So the padding also accepts an edge insert. So I'll say edge inserts.all, or let me say 20 also. Now, when I say edge inserts.all, it's to apply to all sides of the container. That's top, left, right, bottom, right? But if I only want a particular location, let me say if I only want the left hand side, I will say edge inserts.only. Watch carefully. I'll say edge inserts.only. Then I won't just say 20, I will then say left 20. So now this is only going to apply the padding to the left hand side, right? So I can say left 20, then top whatever number I want, right? So that also works, and it also works for the margin. Now, aside edge inserts.only, we have this other cool one called edge inserts.symmetric. Now, symmetric means both vertically and horizontally. So basically, if I say vertically, I mean talking about top and bottom. And if I say horizontally, I'm talking about left and right. So I'll say vertically. have a vertical 20, or let me make it more obvious, 40. Right, so yeah, I have this guy 40. But now if you notice, the other part of the content is missing. Now this is because we are specifying explicitly the height of the container. So for me to avoid that problem, I like removing the height of the container, except I need some. So removing the height basically will allow the container to have an automatic height. Automatic height basically means the height will be determined by the content inside. So the content is big, the container will be big. If it's small, it will be small. The only bad side of it is if there's no content in it, it will not show. You get. So yeah, we have this, and now the whole content comes up. So I have edge inserts of symmetric vertical 40. I can then say horizontal 10. Right, now this will now add the padding to the left and the right side. That's for horizontal, and top and bottom it adds 40. So this is very like short, fast way of doing it. Right, now aside the background color, margin and padding, it also has another property called the decoration. Now decoration is what we can use when we want to do something like a background image or a border radius. Now let's see how it works. So we'll say decoration. Now the decoration is going to be a box decoration. So the more you write this code and you practice it, the more you get used to the properties that they're expecting. So it doesn't just, not magic, you just have to practice it. Then remember the ones that you can. But once you've written the code and you want to do something like that, you go back to where I've written the code before and see what you specified and use it. Or you ask Google if you know exactly what you want. Right, so that's how it works. So don't expect to cram the whole thing at once. So yeah, decoration. But now there's a problem when specifying decoration. I cannot specify color and decoration at the same time, because decoration also accepts another property called color. Right, so we already have color as the direct property of the container. Then now we are also having color as a property of box decoration. So because of this problem, whenever you are specifying decoration, don't specify color. Because really, if you are the one, what will you use in this point? So we have colors.view, that's for the container, then the box decoration is colors.red. So if you do this, it's just going to tell you there's an error. Now the error is going to be something like the color property is present and the box and the decoration is also present. And trust me, Flutter errors are very cool. Error goes like so: color is equal to null and decoration is equal to null. Basically, you cannot provide both a color and a decoration. To provide both, use decoration. Right, so what this means is either I'm specifying color or I'm specifying decoration. So I remove the color because it's really the decoration that I need. So I'm going to set it back to purple. Now aside the color, so I'm also going to put a border radius. So I'll say border radius dot circular 20. Right, so it reloads, and what you get now is a box that has curved edges. Right, so the edges of the container is now curved, so you can switch it to whatever size, whatever radius you want that works for you. And don't forget to always align your code, because aligning your code, make sure your code is aligned properly. Now for it to also be get a good alignment, add commas at the necessary places where you want it to break. Because the reason why aligning is important is so you can easily see where a particular widget starts from and where it ends, so this comment can show. Right, so if this guy wasn't here and I'm aligning my code, okay, I think I have an extension that I've installed that automatically add those commas. I think that's a good one. They've updated, that's good. So yeah, I have the container. Now another widget that we want to explore that is similar to the container is the card widget. Now the reason why I like the card widget is that it has a very cool property called elevation. So now let's see what the card is all about. So for the card widgets, now it accepts a child, right? So now for the child, I'm going to specify a row. Now basically the row I'm going to put I'm going to put this other widget called a circle avatar. sorry, accept a children, right? Accept children. So the role now, I'm going to specify a circular avatar. So for you not to get confused, let me put the circular avatar before the card. Now remember, we are inside a column, so that's why you can now place all these widgets stacking on each other. So let me set a circular avatar here before the card, so you see what the circular avatar looks like. Now the circular avatar is basically a round box that you can place something inside. Now in most apps, this is what you use to show the profile picture of a user. So you see this guy here, the circle avatar. So the circle avatar accepts a child, which will be the stuff inside. So I'll say it should be an icon, and I can say icons.person. Right, so by specifying this, the person will come up. And aside specifying the child, we can also specify the background color. Now the background color, since I'm on purple, I'll say colors.purple. Right, and now doing that, my icon would now become black. So this is not really a good thing for me. I don't like when they are both dark colored. So then I'll specify the color of my icon to be colors.white. So the casing also matters, so colors.white. Alright, so now this looks better. So also, if you want to increase the size of your circle avatar, you can go ahead and specify the radius. The radius is what will determine how big it is. If I specify 50, it's going to be bigger than what it is currently. So if I specify 30, a bit bigger. Now, if you don't like the way the icon looks small inside of it, you can also specify the size of the icon, don't forget. So I cannot specify that, okay, my size of my icon will also be 30. Ideally, I can just play around with the figure of the numbers until I get the one that works for me. Right, so basically this is what the circle avatar is like. So now I'm adding the circle avatar inside this row, right? So this row has children. So basically I just want an image and a write-up, so it will look cool. So here now I can easily copy this guy, right, and paste inside of here. But for the sake of rewriting, let me just drop it. Circle avatar. Well, let me just copy it and paste so it saves us time. So I just copy it, drop it here, and align my code, then I save it. And my circle avatar comes up inside the card. So you can see how the card has a background color already and a bit of an edge, right? We'll get into it. So now still inside my row, right? Still inside my row, I'm now going to add a text. And it says Mark Guitars. So now I can then style it. I can set a style that says text style, font size, let me say 25. Right, so basically this looks like something else. I don't know, it could be anything. Now there's a challenge. Now if you watch carefully, my content is touching the wall of my card, so ideally it doesn't have a padding, especially for this circular avatar. It's actually looking bigger than what I want. Let me use 25. So it's touching the edges, right? So basically there is no padding in it. Now I want to add padding inside this card, but the card does not have any property called padding. Now that's the difference between a card and a container, because a container has a padding. So what do we do? So I can easily put a padding. There's another widget called padding. I can use a padding widget to surround my row widget. So if doing this manually is a bit small, it's harder. But there's, due to the extensions that I've installed, the Flutter extension. So putting my mouse on this row, right? So basically I want to cover the row with a padding widget because it's the row that has the entire content. So I want to cover my row with a padding widget. So all I'll do is I put my mouse here, I click here, then press Ctrl dot. So Ctrl dot will show me some code refactor options. I don't know why it's not bringing it up. Yeah, it's not bringing it up. So Ctrl dot will bring out some options. So I'll see wrap with widgets, with builder, stream builder. Don't bother yourself with those guys, just go to wrap with padding. So the padding is also a widget. So it basically traps it with this widget called padding. And now we are seeing that the padding has a property called padding. And we see edge insert.all 8. So if you don't like it, you can use 10, which I will use. So now my card is going to be wrapped with this guy. Still on this card widget, right? So I'm also going to add some spacing in between these two guys. Now this is important. So also between this avatar and this card, I might also need a space. Now how do we achieve some spacing in Flutter? Now this container, we can specify a margin, right? But not all widgets have the margin property, because the card widget does not. The card widget has a margin property, so I can just say edge insert dot on the top, right? But some widgets don't have that margin property. So in case you get into that scenario, yeah, like these guys, I'm not sure any of these guys have a margin property. So what you can do is there is this widget called sized box. Now the size box widget is basically a box, right? So you won't really see the box, but the space can be there. So I can say this box will have a width of 10. You won't really see it. What that property does is it also has a child. So the size box is like the container, but a bit different because it doesn't have all those beautiful properties like margin and all of that. But the size box, you can just add a space in between these two guys by specifying a width. So there's a width here, there's a size box here, right? And I can also use the size box to differentiate these two guys without using margin. So I'll use the size box. So now, since I want the spacing to be between those two guys, to now be a height, right? So I'll say a height of 20. So that way I have a space here, right? Yeah. So also the card also has a margin property. So if I don't want this guy touching the edges, I will just set a margin property. I say edge insert dot symmetric, right? So I only want on the left and right side, and I'm going to say it should be 20. So yeah. So my guys are out of it. Then lastly, for this card widget, there is this very interesting property it has, which is called the elevation. Now if I set my elevation to 20, you'll see it will be way too much. But basically the elevation makes the card come out like it looks more nice, right? So if I set the elevation to 0, you won't really see it. It won't be there, right? But setting to a cool figure, like let me say 5, give me this very cool design. So in some cases you might want this kind of effect, and the card widget simply helps you achieve that. So these are just some other widgets that we are also going to be using when designing our pages. So in the next class, we'll be looking at the list view widget and the grid view widget. So it's kind of similar to the rows and column, but used for a whole different scenario. So in the next class, we'll talk more about it. So see you in the next class, and bye for now.